Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahavidyan Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Chaitanyam Sarvagam Sarvam Sarvaguhashayam Yat Sarva Vishayatitam Tasmai Sarve Namaha. Om. Good. Very good. Welcome to you all. Seem to have more than usual, which is very nice. Anyway, this is such a wonderful text. I'm really glad that you've chosen to come for class. And good. Welcome also to the many students who attend this class every week online. I don't think they could fit inside here. There are quite a few. Anyway, so we continue today with our study of Upadesha Sahasri. We have one verse dealing with the role of meditation, and then Shankara returns to one of his favorite topics in this chapter, and that is the nature of Atma being asanga, unaffected, unattached. We'll see that in a few minutes. Let us continue with the next verse, which is verse 14. Repeat after me, and as always, as I'm chanting, read the translation and then repeat after me. Yanmanas tanmayon yatve, yanmanas tanmayon yatve, natmatvaptau kriyatmani, natmatvatmau kriyatmani, atmatve chanapekshatvat, atmatve chanapekshatvat, sapeksham hinatat swayam, sapeksham hinatat swayam. Very good. Before we begin this class, we need to, this particular verse, we need to understand something about ancient Hindu culture, where there was a certain form of meditation. They usually called it upasana. And they had this orientation towards upasana that we might find very unusual in modern times, and that is, they felt that whatever you meditated upon over a period of time, you became that which you meditated upon. That's certainly not a modern perspective, but it's important to know it was very much the perspective of Sri Shankaracharya when he wrote this verse. To understand Shankara, we have to understand his worldview, and in his worldview, if you meditate on the sun, you glow like the sun. If you meditate on the moon, you become as beautiful as the moon. You may not agree with that, and that's okay. That's not the point. The point is we have to understand that is Shankara's orientations here. So he refers to that. He says, Yat, and I'm breaking the words apart for you, Yat manaha, one whose mind, tanmayaha, one whose mind, and we have to add some words here, one whose mind is focused on something, yat, in meditation. Whatever you focus upon in meditation, he says, tat mayaha. It's very terse right here. He says you become that. You become tanmaya. You become identical to that which you meditate on. This idea is quite prominent in ancient times. And he points out one factor here, and that is anyatve, because you are different from what you're meditating upon. So being different than the sun, You meditate on the sun, you shine like the sun. Being different from the moon, meditating on the moon, you become beautiful like the moon. But, he says in the second line, na atmatva aptau kriya atmani. But this na atmani. Yeah, please don't sit in front of the camera. Let's see, are you okay? Yeah. There you go. All right. Na atmani kriya. This kriya, this act of meditation, this effort to meditate, na atmani, doesn't work with regard to atma. He says, atmatva aptau. With regard to becoming identical to atma, this approach doesn't work. So meditating on the sun, you shine. Meditating on the moon, you become beautiful. Meditating on atma, Shankara says very clearly here, you don't become atma. And we're going to see now two reasons why meditating on atma, meditation is crucial, as you know from other classes, but we're being a little, Shankara is quite being very specific in his teachings right here. And he's making the point that this idea of meditating on something to become that doesn't work with regard to atma. Why? Two reasons. One is it's a kriya, it's an action. And we've had this discussion before. The results of any action are proportionate to the effort you put into it. So small action, small result, big action, big result. To become atma, atma which is limitless, infinite, supreme consciousness. Some people like that kind of terminology. So to become that which is infinite, how much effort would be required? Right? This is problem one. And that is, if you were to become atma, which is infinite, through meditation, your meditation would have to be infinite in power. Or you could also argue you'd have to meditate for an infinite period of time. Right now you're probably struggling with 20 minutes a day. So infinite period of time sounds like it's not on the table, so to speak. That's reason one, it won't work. And there's a second reason, which is more of what Shankara is referring to here. In the third line, he says, atma-tvecha anapekshatvat. He says, atma-tve, since you are already atma, anapekshatvat, there's no requirement for meditation. You already are that consciousness, which we call atma. You remember my comment about Mahavakyas, like tat tvamasi, are in the present tense. You already are that. There's no sense of becoming in this teaching. You already are that which you want to become. And that's exactly what Shankara says here. The example that's often given. The lady is looking for her necklace. You know the story. So she's looking everywhere for her necklace. Suppose she decides to meditate on her necklace. I don't know why she would do that, but suppose. What would that accomplish? Nothing at all. Meditation has a crucial role in our lives of spiritual growth, but meditation in and of itself doesn't lead to that kind of transformation. What is being transformed, let's be very clear, Atma doesn't need to be transformed. Atma doesn't need Vedanta. Atma doesn't need Swami Tadatmananda. That's for sure. So these teachings are for whom? The best answer to that question is the one who says, I suffer. For that person who is troubled by suffering, these teachings are presented to remove that problem of suffering. Let's, before we move on, just an interesting modern idea, maybe not so modern, kind of based on this, whatever you meditate on, you become that. In modern times, there is a particular New Age idea. By the way, most of what we call New Age is derived very heavily from these teachings of the ancient rishis, kind of came in a very circuitous way. The Theosophical Society was involved, Annie Besant, Gurdjieff was involved, anyway. So much of what we call New Age is these teachings having come to the West in a very, sorry to say, in a very corrupt manner. They've been changed a lot. So anyway, as a result of that, there are, you'd be surprised, how many spiritual practitioners today, even some Christians, not many, but some Christians believe that if you concentrate on getting something, you can make it happen. They call this, I think they call this manifestation. So you can make what you want become manifest in your life just by directing your mind to what you want. And this is very prevalent in this so-called New Age movement. And even, in fact, some Christian preachers have been criticized for coming a little bit close to this when they say that God wants you to be wealthy, so you better pray for money. This is crazy. Anyway, that's what they say. So this idea of manifestation sounds a little similar to what the ancients used to believe, that by meditating on something you become that. But setting the ancient perspective aside, and I said you don't have to accept it. It's a belief. We can't prove it, we can't disprove it, but certainly Shankaracharya believed that to be the case. So what about this modern idea of manifestation? Can you, with the power of your mind, make manifest what you want? That is, can your mind somehow influence the laws of nature in such a way that what your willful intent is becomes manifest in your life? You can see the problem with that. Is your mind that powerful? We had this discussion just a few minutes ago. The mind is very limited in its power. People have a hard time adding numbers. What to say of this idea of manifestation? So it is badly misdirected, this idea of manifestation. And Shankara then will finish this verse and continue. So Shankara here concludes, sapeksham he says, because that which is sapeksham, dependent on meditation, that which depends on meditation, tat, that, nasvayam, that is not your true nature. Meditation is for your mind. Meditation is not for you, the conscious being who knows what's happening in your mind. So, really crucial. That one of the main themes of Shankara's entire text is this discernment between you and your mind. So meditation acts upon the mind. Excellent. And so many powerful, helpful, crucial meditation techniques. But meditation cannot operate upon Atma. And was it much earlier in this text? I don't remember where. Maybe in last year's classes we talked so much about Atma being unchanging consciousness. We're going to come back to that in just a moment. Since Atma is unchanging in its nature, for it to be a absolute reality, a supreme reality, it can't be changing like the weather. So Atma is understood throughout Vedanta as being unchanging consciousness. So tell me, how can meditation help unchanging consciousness? Get the point? This is now to understand the role of meditation, Shankara says very nicely here. In Sanskrit, they use the expression to, with regard to what Shankara is teaching here, aptasya aptihi, or avaptihi. The avaptihi, the acquisition, aptasya, of what you already have. That's like the lady getting her necklace. Big accomplishment, right? I'm being sarcastic for a reason. It's a matter of removing ignorance, right? Is enlightenment any different? Same. Removing ignorance, discovering who and what you already are. Okay, let us proceed. Now we see a series of verses on the nature of Atma being asanga. Kami vaikara sagnaptir, kami vaikara sagnaptir, avibhakta jaramala, avibhakta jaramala, chakshurad sa. Chakshurad sa viparita vibhavyate, viparita vibhavyate. So to introduce this verse, if you're already Atma, if you already are that which you want to become, if you've already acquired that which you want to gain, then what's the problem? Exactly. There is no problem. You think there's a problem, meaning there's some gap of understanding. There's a problem of misunderstanding. As you've heard in many, many prior classes, this leads us to the problem of ignorance, of vidya, and in particular, a topic we've discussed and we will discuss once again, the problem of identification with your body and mind. So all of this leads to the problem of suffering. If you knew clearly that your nature is sat-chit-ananda atma, you wouldn't. The problems of your body would not be your problems. The problems of your mind would not be your problems if you were absolutely established in that understanding of yourself as sat-chit-ananda atma. So Shankara is going to develop that in these verses. He says, "Kam eva." Kam means space. Kam eva, like space. Like space, which is eka rasa. Eka rasa, that's an adjective here. Having, literally it means having one rasa. Rasa here has not, often it's used when you're talking about food. We're not talking about food here, we're talking about the essence. Having one essence. And that's usually translated as undifferentiated. Having one essence. This eka rasa is used commonly as a technical term in Advaita Vedanta. The metaphor they often give is a salt crystal. A salt crystal is salt, eka rasa. Anything else? Just salt. So that's the metaphor given. So like space is eka rasa, it's only space, it's nothing else. He says the same is true about jnaptihi. Jnapti here means consciousness. Consciousness is also eka rasa. Like space is nothing but space, consciousness is nothing but consciousness. And before we continue here, please don't make the mistake of turning consciousness into some kind of idea or concept or something. People talk about the atma. There is no the atma. There's a you atma. Atma is you, the essence of who you are as a conscious being. And in an experiential sense, Atma is present in your experience right this moment in the knownness of your mental activities. I'll say that one more time. Atma is present in your experience right now as the knownness of your mental activities. So nothing remote, nothing conceptual. It's the essence of our experience. So that jnapti, that undifferentiated consciousness, and the metaphor comparing to space continues here. Both space and consciousness are avibhakta, undivided. Undivided, having no edge, having no boundary. Does consciousness have an edge or boundary? Sensation has an edge or boundary, not consciousness. Sensation has an edge or boundary because the nerve cells in your skin are physical things, and physical things have an edge or boundary. Consciousness is not a physical thing. It doesn't have an edge or boundary. Also, both consciousness and space, ajara. Literally free from old age, but I think the idea here is changeless. Atma, you could say Atma doesn't grow old. The consciousness by which you know what's happening right now is the same as the consciousness by which you knew what was happening in your mind 20 years ago. A lot has changed in 20 years. Our bodies have changed, our lives have changed, our minds have changed. What about that consciousness? No change, the same. Ajara, free from old age, meaning unchanging. And of course, amala, not touched by any kind of impurity. We saw that, I think, in our last class as well. If there is smoke or pollution in the air, that doesn't affect space. Air is affected, and then our lungs get affected. But space, by the way, many of you are from India, and you know what a terrible, terrible problem in not just Delhi, but again and again, major cities in India end up being the highest ranked cities in the world in terms of particulates in the air, especially in North India where the farmers burn all the chaff, whatever it is, after they harvest the sugar cane. I'm laughing because I remember traveling through North India and just, you could drive for hour after hour and see nothing but sugar cane. Just amazing. And so what happens, after they harvest that sugar cane, what's left behind gets burnt. So it's not like cars and industry already cause so much pollution, then this burning also adds to it so much, and then people just, it shortens, I'm sorry to go on about this, but it shortens your lifetime. If you live your life in Delhi, your life is probably 10 years shorter as a result of breathing that air. Anyway, sorry, I'm really off on a tangent here. So like space is not affected by all of that pollution, in the same way, your consciousness is not, oh, nice metaphor. Your consciousness is not affected by mental pollution. What is a mental pollution? You turn on TV, watch the internet, whatever it is, plenty of mental pollution out there. So Shankara continues here. Then if your consciousness is really unaffected by mental pollution, so to speak, then why does whatever happens in your mind, why does it seem to affect you so much? We have to address this problem. The rishis say, and Shankara makes it so vividly clear, that consciousness is pure, unchanging knowingness. No, we'll use that word. And as such, how can it be affected by what's happening in your mind and body and outside you in the world? How can it be affected by pollution? Sorry to return to that. And Shankara explains. He says, sa, in the third line, referring back to that jnaptihi, that consciousness, chakshuradi upadhanat viparita vibhavyate. So, sa-jnaptihi, that consciousness, a consciousness which is present in your experience right now, chakshuradi upadhanat, due to its association, upada is to put something close, due to the I like that word, proximity. Due to the proximity of consciousness to your chakshus, etc. Chakshus means eyes, and this is just shorthand for everything having to do with your body-mind complex. Because of the proximity of consciousness to your body and mind, that consciousness, viparita vibhavyate, vibhavyate consciousness appears, viparita, opposite, ulta, many of you would say. Consciousness appears to be affected by whatever happens in your mind, body, and around you because of the proximity of all of that to consciousness. The metaphor we've used many times as our prop is this orange crystal. This orange crystal, which wasn't orange the last time I used it, and it's still not orange today, in spite of the fact that it sure looks orange. So this is the metaphor. Due to the proximity of the cloth, the clear crystal appears orange. The crystal is not only clear, it's also unchanging. Did the crystal change? When I pulled it out here, it's a piece of glass. It doesn't change. So this unchanging, colorless crystal appears orange due to its proximity to this cloth. And this powerful metaphor shows how pure, unchanging consciousness appears to be affected. That vibhavyate, it is an appearance. A mistaken appearance. A mistaken appearance that you take as being real. Like imagining that it really is an orange crystal. Now, if you mistake that as an orange crystal, there's no big big consequence. But when you make the mistake of assuming that whatever happens in your body and mind affects consciousness, that error in thinking has huge consequences. In fact, that's the source of suffering. Okay, we are, let's make sure we're done here. Okay, next, same theme. Drishyattvarahamithyesha, drishyattvarahamithyesha, natmadharmo ghatadivata, natmadharmo ghatadivata, tathanye pratyayagneya, tathanye pratyayagneya, doshaschatma malohyata, doshaschatma malohyataha. Drishyatvat eshaha aham iti na atma-dharmaha ghatadivat. Aham iti. Aham is our pronoun I. Aham iti is used to refer to ahankara, your sense of who you are as a human being. Sometimes in a narrow sense, your feeling of being an individual person. But here, in a much wider sense, you're, in fact, a few classes ago, we had an interesting metaphor I gave. In your mind is an autobiography of your life. Really long, hundreds of pages. If you had to put it in print, your autobiography in your mind would run to hundreds of pages, would it not? A lot of things have happened to you in your life. So in your mind is this autobiography, this self-definition, self-concept. And that autobiography is, we often call ahankara. It's yourself. It's what you identify with. Okay, what about that autobiography? This is exactly what we talked about several classes ago. When you introduce yourself to someone, you open your autobiography and you pull out something relevant in the context, relevant. So in other words, your concept of yourself is based on that autobiography. It's like the story of a character. Like in a play, in a drama, there's a script, a script that describes perhaps the nature of this character, and the problem is you get identified with that character. I joked with you before, when you introduce yourself to someone, do you say, "Hello, I am pure consciousness. I am sat-chit-ananda Atma"? No one does that because you don't think like that. That shows that these teachings still have some more work to do to sink in. The day will come when somebody says, when you're introducing yourself to someone, the day will come when the first thought is, "I am sat-chit-ananda Atma," and then you say, "But I can't say that to this person." And then you open up that autobiography and pick something suitable. That day comes. I promise you, that day comes. So the identification has to shift from that character in your mind, defined by your autobiography. That identification has to shift to your true nature as consciousness. So Shankara says here, Eshaha ahamiti, referring to that autobiography, drishyatvat, because it is known to you, na atma-dharmaha. It's not you. It's not the essence of who you are. Anything known to you, how many times have you heard me say this? Anything known to you is not you. This character in your mind is known to you. Your history is known to you. All the events in your life are known to you. Therefore, because they're known to you, they're objects with which they're objects that define the character in your mind. But they're objects which are observed or witnessed by consciousness. You, as Sakshi, as a conscious observer, are separate, independent of that mental autobiography. And Shankara says, Gatadi Vadi, he says, it's just a thing like a gata. What is a gata? This is a gata. So, like an ordinary object, like a pot, that autobiography in your mind is an object. It's not you. How silly it would be. I see a pot, therefore I'm a pot. Absurd, right? In your mind is a definition of who you are. That definition is known to you like the pot is known to you. Then why do you take that self-definition so seriously? If somebody challenges your autobiography, if they question your autobiography, you might get offended. Said, I don't think anyone would do this. Did you really go to college? That's quite an insult. Anyway, why would that bother you so much? Because it doesn't agree with your autobiography. But suppose you're identified as being consciousness. I have to share with you, this is one of the cutest and most helpful stories that my guru ever told. The story of the beggar. I'm not sure, maybe a few of you know this story. It's a wonderful story. It says there was an actor in a drama, and that actor had the role of playing a beggar. And the actor was supposed to be laying down in the gutter, and some other actor will come along, curse this guy, kick him, and then walk on. Now, my guru said, suppose this actor is really confused and over-identifies with the role. If the actor identifies with the role, he is laying there in a gutter, he gets kicked and cursed by the other actor, he might jump to his feet and say, who are you to curse me and kick me? You can imagine what that would do to the drama. You can also imagine this guy wouldn't get another role in any future drama. Then Pujya Swamiji gave a different take on this, and that is, generally that doesn't happen. Actors are very skillful for the most part. So imagine now this skillful actor laying on the ground, and along comes the other fellow, kicks him, curses him, and the fellow laying on the ground says, okay, now I have to cry, and brings tears to his eyes. And actors can do that. I don't know how they do that, but they do that. They can cry. Amazing. So that actor now is crying, and in the back of his mind he's thinking, wow, what a great job I'm doing today. I should ask for a raise. So this shows the nature of a skillful actor. A skillful actor plays the role without getting overly identified with it. Do you see the metaphor? A skillful Vedantin, if we can use that word, is one who plays the ordinary roles of life, according to that mental autobiography, but without being overly identified with those roles. Not only identification with roles, but Shankara continues to ta in the same way, anye pratyayaha jnayaha. There are other thoughts that occur, doshaha cha, and problems, defects, and in spite of all of these problems, in fact, we'll take it problems of the mind, here pratyaya, and problems of the body, we'll take as dosha. So the problems of the body and mind are jnaya. They are all known to you, experienced by you, observed by you, witnessed by you. Notice what happens when we substitute the word witness. You start to get a sense of distance, separation. And that's the truth. As we've said, anything known to you is not you. Not only that, but the problems of anything known to you are not you. So if there's a... I'm laughing, and I laugh at my own jokes before I tell them. Which is probably not a good idea. But that's one of my problems, one of my limitations. This pot, suppose this pot is cracked. Crackpot. And I see the crackpot, and I identify with it. I see the crackpot, therefore I am a... Okay. Absolutely silly. But the crack, I mean, it's so obvious the crack belongs to the pot. The age and illness of the body belongs to the body. The agitation of the mind belongs to the mind. It's no different. The problems of the pot belong to the pot. Problems of the body belong to the body. Problems of the mind belong to the mind. How simple it is. So Shankara concludes on atma amalaha hi ataha. He indeed ataha, for this reason, atma, your true self, consciousness, is amala. Utterly pure in the sense that atma is utterly unaffected by the problems of the body, mind, and everything else. Okay, let's see one more verse. Sarva pratyaya sakshitvat, sarva pratyaya sakshitvat, avikari cha sarvagaha, avikari cha sarvagaha, vikriyeta yadi drashta, vikriyeta yadi drashta, vikriyeta. I think that vikriyeta. Let's assume it's right. I'm just looking at the grammar. Buddhyadi valpavit bhavit. Buddhyadi valpavit bhavit. Yeah, vikriyeta would be changing. I think it's so correct. Sometimes there are typos. So here Shankara states this profound truth which you have to discover. This is not a matter of belief, nor is it something that I can make you understand. I can't make you understand anything. That's not in my hands. You have to understand. What do you have to understand is sarva pratyaya sakshitvat, because you as a conscious being are the sakshi, the observer. Sarva pratyaya pratyaya of whatever happens in your mind. Because you are the observer of whatever happens in your mind. We use this word sakshi, and that word sakshi, as I've commented before, implies some distance. Distance, earlier we talked about the problem of proximity with the orange crystal. So here we want to do the opposite of proximity. Oh, good metaphor. Notice when there's so much proximity, closeness, you can't tell whether the crystal is clear or not. Suppose we increase the distance. It becomes pretty obvious. So suppose you increase, not physical distance, suppose you increase the conceptual distance between you, the conscious observer, sakshi, and what you observe, which is all the activities of your mind. Suppose you increase that distance. Then it becomes so much easier to discern. What belongs to the mind is out there and separate from me. So this is what Shankara says here. Sarva pratyaya sakshitvat. Because you are the conscious observer, conscious observer who is avikari, unchanging. You are the unchanging conscious observer, and you are sarvagaha, all pervasive. Shankara's got all these big important words here. That unchanging, avikari, we've just discussed, right? So whatever the problems of the pot belong to the pot, problems of the body belong to the body, problems of the mind belong to the mind, and consciousness is the unaffected observer, unchanging observer. One more word he adds here. We're talking about atma, sarvagaha, all-pervasive, boundaryless. As I said before, sensation stops at the edge of your skin because of the physicality of the skin and the nerve cells. Atma has no physicality. What will keep it inside? What prevents Atma from being on the other side of your skin? So that's very interesting to think about. You, the edge, let me choose the words carefully. The boundary of your existence is not here. Since you are consciousness, in essence, and since that consciousness is not a physical thing, has no shape, no form, no edge, no boundary. This is where we're coming to. So that consciousness, which is your true nature, has no edge or boundary. It's not stuck inside your body. It is sarvaga. It is limitless. And as I just said, you have to discover this for yourself. These teachings are very powerful, and I'm doing my best to share them with you, but only you can discover this truth. You have to discover it is true about the consciousness present in your experience right now. Just before there's not much left, so before we conclude, some people say, how can you prove that consciousness is avikari, unchanging? How can you prove that consciousness is sarvagaha? I turn it around and say, how can you disprove what the ancient rishis have taught? So notice that Advaita Vedanta, we've talked about this many, many times, Shruti Yukti Anubhava, based on scriptural teachings, based on reasoning, Yukti, based on Anubhava, your own experience, based on all three of this. If you were to claim that consciousness undergoes change and consciousness is stuck inside your body, no matter what arguments you come up with to establish your contentions, can be easily dismissed. This tradition is so powerful. This threefold basis of Shruti, Yukti, Anubhava is so, Shruti, scripture, Yukti, reasoning, Anubhava, experience. It is so powerful that any contrary contention can easily be dealt with. Notice that we're studying something that's 1,200 years old. By the way, I think in a prior class I spoke 800 years old. 800 years is the approximate date of Shankara, 1,200 years old. In 1,200 years, no one has refuted Shankara thoroughly. I mean, the people have tried. If Shankara was totally and completely refuted, would we be studying this today? Okay, you get the point. All right. So, Shankara concludes. Actually, Shankara gives this counterexample. He says, Yadi, suppose, this is in the second half, suppose, drashta is another word for sakshi, that observer, the witness, literally means seer. So suppose the witness, the creator, were to undergo change. For Sanskrit students, potential mood. So, suppose consciousness were to undergo change, like any other object. Suppose this crystal really became orange. Suppose. Then, Shankara concludes, then buddhi adi eva alpavit bhavet. Then atma-bhavet would become alpavit, limited, buddhi adi eva, like the mind, etc. I don't think this crystal is going to be a good metaphor here, but what is unique about consciousness is exactly the fact that it is limitless and unchanging, therefore not subject to suffering. That's our bottom line here, right? You've heard me say many times, this is not some kind of philosophy we're studying. This is a solution to the problem of suffering. We said again and again, suffering takes place due to identification with the body and mind. Then the problems of the body become your problems of the mind become your problems. By discovering the asangatva. In Sanskrit, that word is so clear, and I struggle to put it into English. Asangatva, the state of being utterly unaffected by anything under any conditions whatsoever. That asangatva. When you discover that asangatva, suffering goes away. Conversely, and that's what Shankara is giving here, to the extent that you are still identified, buddhi adi, with your intellect, mind, senses, body, etc., 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 and that autobiography in your mind, to the extent that your identification with all of that continues, definitely you will suffer. To the extent that you drop that identification, to that extent you become free of suffering. Just briefly loop back to the first verse. Notice here that in Vedanta, we solve the problem of suffering not by attaining something. We said in the first verse in today's class, is you don't gain Atma, you already are that Atma. So you don't solve the problem by getting something. There's nothing to get in a literal sense. But there's something to get rid of. And get rid of what? Get rid of identification with the body and mind. How do you get rid of the identification with the body and mind? That's what these teachings are meant for, to remove the ignorance of your true nature that underlies this identification with your body and mind. And that's a good place to conclude our class today. We'll continue next week. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritangamaya Om Shanti 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 Om Tat Sat. See you next time.